Hey guys, welcome back to ArtosisCasts. Today we're taking a look at Bisu, one of the greatest Protoss versus Zerg players of all time, going up against a Zerg player. The ID, if you keep close track of that type of things, looks a lot like a Soma ID, but it is not. This is not Soma, just a high-ranking Zerg. Not sure who it is, but again, not Soma. I wish it was Soma. That would be great. But yeah, let's see some Bisu PvZ. That's, you know, something I'm always into, always happy to see. We're on Radeon, so probably the best modern map at the moment. It's actually been kind of interesting watching the evolution of 4-player maps. So let me go through that for a second as we're in the early game, and it looks like it's just going to be, you know, like a Forge Fast expansion probably versus like maybe a Hatch first. So basically, if you think back, right, Polypoid's been out for a while. Polypoid came out and was basically the best map that we've had. Oh, it's actually a Gateway expand. My bad. Not a Anyways, whatever. Gateway expansion coming up from Bisu, and he is scouting the wrong direction. So Polypoid came out, and Polypoid was like basically the best 4-player map we had seen in a very long time. In fact, it's still used really regularly. It's kind of entering into that like fighting spirit realm where it just keeps on being used because it's really, really good. And then after Polypoid, the AMD sponsored a map to be made, utilizing a lot of pros working together, and that was Vermeer. And Vermeer became a little bit more popular than Polypoid for a while, but actually fell off slightly. I think people kind of decided it wasn't quite as good as Polypoid overall. From there, AMD sponsored another map to be made, which is Radeon, which is, I think most people agree this map is a little bit better than Vermeer. And now Radeon is kind of entering that area around where Polypoid is, where you're like, okay, this map is really good. Every matchup seems pretty good here. It's very interesting in the way that you move around it. I'm actually, one thing that I'm a big fan of is how it is not rotationally symmetric, which makes it kind of interesting compared to a lot of maps. Most maps are rotationally symmetric, so this actually gives you like a different feel to a lot of them. So Radeon is one map that I think is going to stay around for a really long time at this point. Okay, anyways, the game is starting to pick up a little bit, so I just want to mention the Zealot comes down. He did put a little bit of damage on drone, but nothing really to do here. It looks like he's just going to retreat, and you can see these Zealots running past the Overlord, actually checking this location. The third base was taken over here, so Bisu kind of missing out on that. But yeah, with 2 Zealots and a probe, there is some real potential to kill a lot of Zerglings. He does run back home with those Zealots, while the probe will continue to scout. He's going to see this third hatchery over here. A few more Zerglings still being made by our Zerg player. And yeah, it looks like the Forge coming up, and with these Zealots going home, he is going to be able to just kind of defend against this. Doesn't want to get this one Zealot actually surrounded, and he actually does get a little surrounded. He could have done a little bit better on maneuvering. It looks like he was probably doing something else because he was going to the north. It was very, like, if he was looking at it, he would have made it walk to the right a little bit to get out from behind the Zergling that got in front of him, which actually body blocked him into that bad scenario. So anyways, a lot of Lings up here. I don't think he has any chance to break through. Like, he is putting some damage onto this gateway, and you can see it's like he's trying to lure the Zealots out, but the cannon, I think, is going to finish in time. Like, I think the gateway, like, there's a possibility it dies, but he should be able to hold even if this dies. See, the cannon is finishing up, like, just exactly in time, it looks like. See? So that was a pretty solid gateway kill. I feel like the Zerg controlled that about as well as he could. I think he could have put 4 Zerglings on it right at the beginning and gotten it just slightly quicker and made it a little bit scarier for Bisu, but Bisu's completely fine. He is making some more Zerglings now. Layer on the way, Zergling speed on the way, so this should be a Spire type build. Of course, we can see Bisu has kept his probe alive. During all of that, he kept his probe alive in the main base. Definitely a superpower of Bisu. Now these zealots going over, gonna go behind the mineral patches a little bit. Ooh, that was actually really nice to run that behind. Get some extra damage onto those zealots. But this is great positioning from Bisu. Can't get too much more cost efficient in this type of scenario. Look at how many Zerglings he's ending up killing here. Really annoying for our Zerg player. But he does end up taking those down. Still chasing back the probe with Zergling speed. Of course, the probe cannot stay out any longer. Stargate, a little over a third the way done. As that single cannon is making another zealot as well. And just mostly drones being made right now while that spire comes up. Okay, so, like, that was actually kind of an enjoyable early game, I would say. We definitely had some back and forth. Bisu moving down very quickly, getting chased back, having to micro around his gateway, which did end up getting killed. This is actually really funny. Notice how these are attacking. You might look at that and be like, why is he attacking his own buildings? So here's a little trick. He didn't have the Zealot. The Zealot just popped out, and now he'll hold position it. So the command card on workers is so big because it's, well, you can't see it here, but, you know, if you're playing, you can see it. It's got, like, move. It's got attack. It's got, you know, it's got all these different things. Build advanced structure, gather, return cargo. Okay, it's got all these different commands. And the thing is, it can do everything another unit can do, but you can't just give it the command alone. So the probe doesn't have, for instance, hold position on its command card. So there's no button you can press. But if you select it with another unit, so let's say you select it with this zealot here, you can now give a hold command. And the hold command will work for the probe. So when you don't have another unit out, how do you make your probe's hold position? Well, you cannot. So what you do is you tell them to attack your buildings, because the buildings aren't going to die, but you need the probe not to move. So this is a trick that Protoss players have, where you attack the building and it keeps the probe in place. Yeah, so there you go. That's what you're doing there. Also, another thing they don't have is patrol, so sometimes you'll see players like grab a... If you want to patrol with a worker, which isn't super common, but you'll see it, they'll grab it with another unit and tell it that patrol command, that type of thing. Okay, anyways, there you go. The Spire is up. We have Carapace, Flyer Carapace on the way. Hydralisk Den and Evolution Chamber are both coming down. We have some really good SimCity. 6 mutas coming up. And between the plus Carapace and more than 5 mutas, because 5 mutas one-shots a probe, you can tell he is going to dedicate a fair amount of resources, it looks like, to these Mutalisks. Now, Bisu keeping his Corsairs alive. He's actually making a secondary cannon. He actually did eat a Scourge there. So kind of a nice hit there from our Zerg player. The 5 Zealots start to walk in. Zealot Leg's just now finishing, and he sees the mutas. So that's actually kind of big. We'll see if he throws down a secondary cannon up here. That's actually something I'm wondering about right now. This looks really good, but this looks like, I mean, something bad could happen, but if you look at the flight distance, you don't need as much defense over here, because the mutas, if you look, right, you're making out of these hatcheries, you have to kind of fly up and to the left, and then in over here, and you can't go straight home either. So you don't necessarily need as many cannons in a place like this, whereas this is a direct route to the main base. The double cannon is very important up here. So some more gateways going in. That +1 flyer attack still coming for the Corsairs. Almost done. It always finishes before the +1 flyer carapace for Zerg, so you do have to be a little bit careful around that timing. +1 armor coming up for these Zealots that already have that +1 attack. Just keeping the Corsairs here. He moved this one over a little bit to just give himself a little bit more vision there. Lot of Scourge out. And mostly Hydras being made, as well as Overlord Speed. Kind of interesting. I didn't expect to see Overlord Speed necessarily this quickly, but maybe he's thinking that he's going to be running into some Dark Templars. You don't really need it for another reason. Now, Bisu is doing something because he knows that there's a good amount of mutas that have been made. He's made an Archon. Hold on, he's got to pull back here. Okay, jumping on a 3rd cannon now here as well. Already a lot of damage to those Mutalisks. They do eliminate one of the cannons, but Bisu has done such a good job with those Corsairs so far. Hasn't lost any. Is hitting this counterattack as well. He, of course, has that Archon I was trying to explain, because then you can run the Corsairs around over the Archon if you're battling out here, and the Scourge can get one-shotted. So, just something you have to be a little bit careful about with the Zerg. Now, The Corsair's flying back. He has lost a single one. He's adding a lot of gateways. He's keeping some good pressure on. You see, he does have that Dark Templar mixed into his army as well. Bisu, of course, a master of this unit. Still a lot of micro going on with the Corsairs versus the Scourge Muta. And you can see Bisu is so on top of pulling this back when he needs to. The 3 Mutas still trying to cause some havoc. He's still trying to get value out of these Scourge. I don't think he's going to find it, though. Like, Bisu's micro is so on point. He's just looking for a few shots. Okay, he does eat 1 Scourge shot there. 1 Scourge hit. Ooh, and you can just see ridiculously good micro. So he ended up losing 2 Corsairs, a cannon, and, you know, maybe a couple probes died in there as well, but he basically dismantled all of the air units here from our Zerg players. So really, really excellent Mutalisk defense from Bisu. Some good multitasking during all of that as well. But this Zerg player has actually gotten a lot of Hydras out now. Now, this was only 1 Stargate Corsair. So it's not like he's not going to have Psystorm. In fact, Psystorm just finished. He's got a fair amount of High Templars, even though he made that Archon early on. Ooh! Okay, does get another Scourge hit, but yeah, not the value he was looking for. A lot of Hydralisks coming up now. Bisu will turn those away quickly. He has a couple Psystorms in here and a very healthy amount of Zealots. We've definitely been seeing a return. I've talked a lot about how I really like the Dragoon styles. We've seen a return a little bit to heavy speed Zealot from some top Protoss players. So kind of cool to see. And Bisu pushing down right now. Does get 1 good Storm. That's an excellent secondary Storm there. And his Zealots and 1 Archon dominating this left side while the Storm dominates the right. The 1 DT in here as well, causing some problems. More and more Zealots coming out. A lot of Hydras actually coming up right now as well. So he does have to look out for that. Some Scourge coming up and actually do clear a couple Corsairs. This is actually starting to open up the possibility for a switch back into Mutalisks at some point. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But right now, the Zealots are overwhelming a little bit. Our Zerg player pulling back. And look at this. He is making a few more Mutalisks. If you can reduce that Corsair count, sometimes it really pays to make another group of Mutas. He's going to want to target down the Archon, though, before those Mutas join the fray. Nice Psystorm onto some of those Hydras. The Archon's still at very high shields here, so not something that he's focused on. Sometimes if Zerg suddenly focuses on the Archon in the middle of a battle, you know that Mutalisks are hatching. So he hasn't given that away yet, and I don't believe Bisu actually saw these as they popped. I think he lost his vision just before, but that is a strong pullback from him either way. Now, the 3rd base has been set up here from Bisu. 3rd cannon coming up. 4th base for our Zerg player, so really important that he gets that up and droned. As when Bisu gets onto 3 gases, he is going to be a force to be reckoned with, as if he wasn't already. So Bisu going up, a couple more gateways as well. These Mutalisks are going to be focusing on sniping out some High Templars. Now, this is a more Zealot-heavy composition. Look at this. So he doesn't have that additional anti-air that you would have from the Dragoons. Not that Dragoons are great against Mutas, but he just killed like 4 High Templars. He took a lot of damage on the Mutas, so they're maybe not going to be too useful. Well, they would still be somewhat useful if not for this Archon. But just killing the High Templars are going to allow his huge mass of Hydralisks to make some headway. That is what you're looking for there, and that's why it's so important to keep those Corsairs alive. I liked how when the Hydralisk battle was going on, he brought in Scourge to deal with those Corsairs. It was a really high brain move, and you can see now the Mutas are going to add some additional damage onto here. Again, the Dragoons don't kill Mutas that quickly, so the Mutas can kind of just fight here if there's no splash damage. That's just how Mutas are. There's no splash, they can fight. They come back, start to deal with some of these Zealots as well, and you can see this is actually going very well for our Zerg. Losing those High Templars was pretty crucial. Now, he's going to back up to these 3 cannons, so this should be enough for now. By the way, Bisu just... like, I don't know what to describe this as, but just, like, casually throwing up a 4th base after losing his High Templars. Just like, yeah, no problem. I'm just going to expand again. We're going to hold. Everything's going to be fine. Kind of wild to see, though. Now, he brings up a ton of these Hydras. The Muta's trying to dive on some more High Templars, and they do get a couple, but every single Muta's going to go down, and some decent Storms still come in as well, so he's going to have to run with all this. There are some more Mutas that have been made. You know, this is turning into a little cycle. It kind of looks like Soma's play a bit. I think this Zerg is probably a big fan of Soma. But definitely some cool, aggressive Mutalisk play in this game. And in fact, I think we saw True do this recently on the channel as well, where you're kind of not going to Lurkers. Instead, you're playing a very aggressive, tempo-oriented game with those Mutalisks, sniping the High Templars so that your just pure massive Hydra can fight against that Gateway army. If you do not have splash damage, the Gateway army just can't stand up to Hydras. It just cannot. Like, they pack in so tight, they're so cheap, their damage, their range, everything is very high-end against Protoss. You know, even though it's explosive damage, does full against shields. So you get these balls that are like, you just can't beat without splash. Simple as that. You cannot beat them without the splash damage. So that is kind of the aim of this heavier Mutalisk-based play. And you can see, again, a lot of mutas being added in here. I am a little bit of a fan of this style. It looks so fun to play. You know, I'm not a Zerg player, but if you can pull this off where you're basically like rotating through mutas and sniping High Templars and moving huge groups of Hydras around, just feels like a fun RTS experience. Not for the Protoss, of course. Okay, so +1 carapace on the way. I believe he has +2 attack on these Hydras right now. Yep. And of course, the +1 carapace. Shouldn't see any more than that on those mutas. Looks like we're going to get another base set up down here in the bottom left. Bisu, of course, already on 4 bases. Like, that's advantageous to Protoss without a doubt. Without a doubt. And looking at his gateway count, he's only on 9. He does have a robo. But I think it's okay because he's really only going to have 2 mining bases here shortly, as you can see. These mineral patches just about done. Couple overlords going up there. Ooh! Diving in for some High Templar kills, and he is going to get quite a few. Loses a muta there. Ooh, the +2 armor keeping that alive. He lost like 7 more mutas getting that last one. Yeah, he did. He lost 7 more Mutalisks to get 1 more High Templar that had like 1 health left over. Seriously, when I was told that Protoss players were rushing +2 armor to keep the High Templars alive against mutas, at first I was like, that doesn't sound right. It's like 11 mutas coming in. How can the additional +1 carapace make that big of a difference? But I see it time and time again where the mutas come in and the High Templars get like really low but don't quite die, and then you have to do the second swipe and 7 mutas die like we just saw. So definitely you can see the payoff of rushing to +2 armor for Protoss. You know, it used to be you just focus on mostly attack upgrades, try to keep ahead of the carapace upgrades of Zerg. But nowadays, it really is so much about maintaining your army, maintaining those High Templars. People have really figured out that, like, yeah, these long-term units, these splash units, this is how we win, and doing anything possible to keep them alive will be worthwhile. So a whole nother group of mutas, 11 fresh mutas coming in. He actually brings the Lings in. That was really smart. And look at this. Oh my God. He did not. That could not have been worth it. That could not have been worth it. Look at the amount of High Templars he's making. By the way, the reason he brought in the small amount of Lings is because goons take 4 shots to kill a Ling, because the Lings are small and goons do explosive damage, which is half against small units. So just by bringing in a small amount, because there's higher attack priority on the Zerglings, all the dry goons attacked Zerglings instead of the mutas, and the mutas just flew over the goons to kill the High Templars. It really added a lot of time onto how long he had to snipe those High Templars. Now, we have an attack on that 4th base, but this is when Bisu is going to push out. His 4th base is dying right now, so he needs counterplay, and his counterplay is going to be to eliminate this army, and I guarantee you he's going to go to the south and try to kill something else. Okay, he pushes back these Hydras. He's lost this base, so he's not... Well, actually, he remade this. Or not remade, I'm sorry. Made this base for the first time. So actually, with 4 base, as long as he has 2 mining bases with the gases, I think he's actually okay. Because I was looking at this as like, oh, now he's down to 1 mining base. You're going to have to counter and make sure you do damage. But he gives up this base and takes this one and maintains a huge High Templar count. So his cost efficiency is going to be pretty insane here, especially when you look at the fact that this is still layer tech. Finally, the Lurker upgrade is on the way, but this is like Dragoon, Mass High Templar. He has Kadaran Amulet, so he's going to have 3 storms per High Templar the longer you wait. Everything is really well defended. The cannons, look at this. He has 4 High Templars over here with some cannons. You're never going to break these bases. It's all going to come down to this Zerg player just taking everywhere else on the map and making like unkillable defensive positions, I think. He is attacking in with the Hydras now, but as the High Templars come up, look at this. Just so many Psy Storms going down. Endless. Endless Psy Storms. He's just shredding absolutely everything. And with this many gases mining, he can really continue to make those High Templars. Look at this. He's got 6 waiting at home. Still, look at that. Dude, he has like 15 High Templars almost. It's absolutely crazy. But you can't just sit on the 4 base and expect Zerg to endlessly attack you. Now that he's got this base, now that he's taking this base, that is a lot. And we should see the Queen's Nest realistically. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't just throw down a Queen's Nest and get up to things like maybe a Defiler, right? Like Plague on this would be amazing. You know, there's a few different things, like Adrenal upgrade is really great. He doesn't have any Zergling upgrades, so like that makes it a little bit harder, but still very good. 10 Lurkers being made. Dude, this guy is the... You know who this is reminding me of, actually? This is like DRG in Brood War form. For anyone that's a StarCraft 2 fan, DRG was one of the best Zergs during one of the peaks of StarCraft 2, like the pre-Kespa era peak. And he like only stayed on layer. He would never go hive tech. And this is kind of reminding me of that. This guy's like, nah, man, I'm going to make 40 mutas this game. And after that, I'm going to make 40 lurkers. And it's going to be mass Hydra from A to Z. And we're going to see if that ends up working out. He brings up a lot of lurkers. You got to spread these things, though. Okay, starting to spread a little bit. He runs pretty damn close before burrowing. That's a little bit crazy. This is a super, super aggro move. Let's see if Bisu can actually hold. This is actually so chaotic. He is losing a huge chunk of his army. Despite the cost inefficiencies from this Zerg player, he does lose a lot of army. But the Zerg loses just about everything. The thing is, the Zerg economy is so nuts right now. Well, I guess he's got to spread some of these drones back out, but he's got a lot of production going on as well. 17 Hydras, 5 Lurkers on the way. You can see up here the top left being cleared a bit. Ooh, 3-2 upgrades. Or 2-3 is, we normally say attack first. So 2-3 upgrades. And he is going to get another base up. Ooh, is that overlapping? That might be. I think he might have screwed that up. I'm not, maybe not. I guess we'll see. I'm bad at telling where the little halo of the Protoss building actually is. Anyways, he comes into the center once again. So many Psy Storms still available. A lot of Dragoons. His upgrades are a little bit better than Zerg's, although the Zerg upgrades scale a bit better. So we're just about even as far as that goes. The Psy Storms are phenomenal. Zealot, Archon, Dragoon, High Templar. You really do need some Defilers against this. Dark Swarm negates all Dragoon damage and negates the vast majority of Archon damage as well. Only the splash portion does damage. That does look like it overlaps to me. We're going to see in a minute here. That happens sometimes. You're doing things quick. You're just flipping over and trying to make stuff really quickly while, you know, managing your macro, managing your army, making sure that you're not losing it all. You're hitting your right Psy Storms and everything. Yep, I told you. I told you. Tasos would have told me that's not blocking. I swear. Okay, now, here comes Bisu through the center once again. He has got to continue to grind down these Hydralisks. He's up 20 supply right now, and there's like 20 more drones, so his army for sure is much, much stronger. You see the Zerg players swarming really well. There's like so many Hydras coming out, and he's really microing the groups very well, trying to get out of the storms, but there are so many that you can't avoid it. It's like a damn hurricane at this point. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to hide from these Psy Storms. More Hydras coming up the side. Look at the just a ridiculous amount of High Templar. And now attacking up into this base. Killing this base while getting this base up, that's like a winning position. Okay, well, the Zerg player certainly agrees with that as well. I tell you what, that was a fun game. I really, really enjoyed that. I really do like this heavy Mutalisk type of style. The Lurkers, you know, he did that one super chaotic Lurker battle. I'm not entirely sure about that. I do think he should have tried to get to Defiler. I think he could have gotten to Defiler, but the way he built out the game was very tempo-oriented, so I kind of understand as well. Anyways, guys, I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.